Welcome, everyone. Today, we are beginning our study of Class 12 Indian Economic Development. This course is designed to give you a deep understanding of the historical and structural factors that have shaped the Indian economy into what it is today. To understand the present, we must look at the past. The British colonial era in India began with the Battle of Plassey in 1757. Following the Revolution of 1857, the British Crown took direct control from the East India Company. It's crucial to realize that for 200 years, the fundamental aim of British rule was to use the Indian economy as a feeder to develop Britain's own economy. They extracted our raw materials and used India as a captive market to sell their finished goods back to us, a system that lasted until our independence on August 15, 1947. Before the British arrived, India was actually a prosperous, self-reliant economy. It was primarily agrarian, with two-thirds of the population engaged in farming. Furthermore, India was globally renowned for its exquisite handicraft industries, particularly in cotton, silk textiles, and metalwork. However, the British systematically transformed this vibrant economy into a mere supplier of raw materials and a consumer of industrial products from Britain. During the colonial period, the British government made no official attempt to measure India's national income. However, several individuals took up the challenge, including Dadabhai Naoroji, William Digby, and V.K.R.V. Rao. Notably, the calculations made by Dr. V.K.R.V. Rao are considered the most accurate for that period, providing us with a clearer picture of the economic conditions at the time. This diagram illustrates the three main pillars of colonial exploitation. The British government systematically exploited the Indian economy across the agricultural, industrial, and foreign sectors. Let's take a closer look at how this exploitation manifested in each area. The agricultural sector, the backbone of India, faced severe stagnation. The primary culprit was the land settlement system, or the zamindari system. Under this arrangement, zamindars were declared owners of a land. They had to pay a fixed revenue to the British, but they were free to extract as much lagan as they wanted from the actual tillers. While the zamindars lived in luxury, the farmers were left with barely enough to survive. Agriculture also suffered from forced commercialization, where farmers were pressured to grow cash crops like indigo and jute instead of food crops for self-consumption, often leading them into debt. This was compounded by low productivity due to a lack of technology, irrigation, and fertilizers. Because the British and the zamindars had no incentive to invest in the land, India's agriculture faced a chronic scarcity of investment in basic infrastructure like flood control and drainage. In the industrial sector, the British implemented a discriminatory tariff policy. This allowed for the tariff-free export of Indian raw materials to Britain and the tariff-free import of British finished goods into India. This twofold policy effectively destroyed India's world-famous handicraft industry, as it could no longer compete with the cheap, machine-made goods flooding the domestic and foreign markets. The decline of handicrafts had devastating ripple effects. It led to massive unemployment, forcing artisans back into an already overburdened agricultural sector. Furthermore, the new industrial sector had a very low contribution to the GDP because there were almost no capital goods industries to produce machinery. The public sector's role was also extremely limited, focusing only on areas that benefited British administrative and trade interests, such as railways and communication. The economic situation was further worsened by the partition of the country. India lost fertile jute-producing land to East Pakistan, creating a raw material shortage for Kolkata's mills. Additionally, the food granaries of West Punjab and Sindh went to Pakistan, sparking a serious food crisis and reducing the overall market size for Indian industries. Turning to foreign trade, the state of affairs during British rule can be summarized by 3 points. India became a net exporter of primary products. The British maintained a monopoly over trade routes, and there was a significant drain of Indian wealth. Let's examine these in more detail. By exporting raw materials like cotton and sugar while importing finished British textiles and capital goods, India's trade was entirely skewed. More than 50% of this trade was restricted to Britain, a monopoly strengthened by the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869. Crucially, the export surplus generated was not used to benefit India. Instead, it was drained to pay for British administrative expenses, war costs, and service imports. The occupational structure at the time of independence shows a very lopsided economy. About 75% of the population was stuck in agriculture, while only 9% were in manufacturing, a stark contrast to developed nations like the UK or USA. We also saw regional variations, with some southern states beginning to shift towards services, while others like Rajasthan became even more dependent on agriculture. Infrastructure did see some development, but the motives were colonial rather than developmental. The British introduced the railways in 1850, which allowed for long-distance travel and trade, but primarily served their own interests. Similarly, roads, water transport, and the electric telegraph were developed to mobilize the army and maintain administrative control over the vast territory. To summarize the reasons behind this infrastructural push, roads were built to move raw materials to ports. Railways were designed to expand the market for British goods and move the army, and the telegraph was implemented at high cost strictly to maintain law and order. Every improvement was calculated to maximize British profit and control. However, we should acknowledge some positive side effects of British rule. The commercialization of agriculture changed the outlook of farmers toward market-based production. The infrastructure, though self-serving, did help check famines by allowing food transport. Furthermore, the shift from a barter system to a monetary exchange and the establishment of an effective administrative setup provided a foundation for our future planners. On the eve of independence, the Indian economy could be described in three ways. First, it was a colonial economy drained of its wealth. Second, it was semi-feudal, featuring both a harsh zamindari system and an emerging, unequal capitalist class. Finally, it was a stagnant economy, particularly in agriculture, where growth had slowed to a crawl. It was also a backward and depleted economy. Low productivity, high birth and death rates, and mass illiteracy were widespread. The British divide and rule policy left us with an amputated economy through partition. Most importantly, we faced industrial backwardness, where small-scale industries were ruined and we were almost entirely dependent on imports for capital goods. Looking at the demographic profile, the first official census in 1881 marked the beginning of decennial data collection. A key turning point was the year 1921, known as the Year of the Great Divide. Before this year, India's population growth was erratic. After 1921, it entered the second stage of demographic transition with consistent growth. The demographic conditions under colonial rule were quite grim. Both birth and death rates were extremely high, 48 and 40 per thousand, respectively. This profile, combined with low literacy and poor health facilities, pointed directly to an economy that was both backward and struggling with widespread poverty. To understand the human cost, consider these figures. Infant mortality was a staggering 218 per thousand, compared to 33 today. Life expectancy was only 32 years, and the literacy rate was a dismal 16%, with female literacy below 7%. These statistics reveal the deep-seated poverty and lack of basic health care and sanitation that characterized the era. To wrap up, let's keep these key dates in mind as they mark the milestones of this period. From the Battle of Plassey in 1757 to the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 and the Great Divide in 1921. These events provide the timeline for the economic transformation we've discussed today. Thank you.